Almighty God, we pray for your blessing upon this council, help and prosper its work for the advancements and benefit of its people, so that peace and happiness, unity and justice may be established amongst us all. Amen. Amen. Please be seated. Manningham City Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri people as the traditional custodians of land we now know as Manningham. We pay our respects to the Wurundjeri elders, past and present, and value the ongoing contribution to the cultural heritage of Manningham. I welcome all members of the public here tonight to this council meeting who have come along to observe the proceedings. I would like to also advise those present tonight, meeting is being audio and video recorded. All care will be taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. By remaining in the gallery, it is assumed that your consent is given in the event that your voice and/or image is broadcast. I also recognise and welcome any former councillors and mayors that are in attendance this evening. Manningham City Council also acknowledges the contribution made to Manningham over the years by people of diverse backgrounds and cultures. All council meetings are controlled by a meeting law procedural local law. I will introduce each item of business as listed on the agenda by calling it by number and by reading the title. I will then call for a mover and a seconder of a motion on the item before opening any debate. Only councillors are able to join the debate on an item. Councillors may adopt the officer's recommendation in the report or propose amendments and supplementary motions. I draw your attention to two opportunities for you to ask questions tonight. Verbal question time allows people who registered prior to the meeting to ask questions, but only about issues which are not on the agenda. Written questions are dealt with towards the end of the meeting, and these can be about any issue, including items on tonight's agenda. Item number 2, apologies and requests for leave of absence.
Madam Mayor, there are no apologies for tonight's meeting.
Councillors, it is with deep regret that I must inform you of a recent passing of a former mayor and councillor, Jack Scott. Jack served as a councillor for the city of Doncaster and Templestowe from 1973 to 1983, including one term as mayor in 1976-77. As an active councillor and community advocate, Jack was passionate about his local community and the environment in which he lived. His most enduring legacy will no doubt be the significant role he played in preserving the 100-acre reserve in Park Orchards. As mayor, Jack was instrumental in securing substantial funding from both the state and federal governments to assist council in purchasing this land to be maintained as a natural reserve for the community. Jack was a valued and outstanding member of the community, and with your agreement, I would like to suspend standing orders for council to pass a motion of condolence. Do I have a mover?
I'd like to move that, Madam Mayor, that the standing order 16.1 be suspended to enable a motion of condolence to be taken.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor McLeish. All those in favour? Carried. Standing orders have been suspended. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Gubley.
That Council place on record its sadness at the present passing of former Mayor and Councillor Jack Scott. To record its appreciation for the contribution of Mr Scott as an active community advocate who worked tirelessly in support of his local community. And also extend its sympathy and condolences to Mr Scott's family at this difficult time. If I can also add, Madam Mayor, I personally knew Jack Scott, who was a neighbour of mine, as his wife Christine was and is, and they persistently used to engage in all community activities. They were one of the first to congratulate me on starting the Park Orchards Farmers Market, and they continually turned up there. As a matter of fact, his widow, Christine, was there last week, and that was the day after the funeral, and it was basically her way of also ensuring that she continued that community work. So I'm very grateful to the family, and that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
I'd like to ask that this motion be passed by councillors standing in silent absence. The motion is carried unanimously.
Madam Mayor.
Can I have a... Councillor, do you have anything else to add?
I suppose so. It's time to move back to resume standing orders.
Councillor Galby, Councillor McLeish?
No.
So, standing orders be resumed?
Thank you.
Okay, put that to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. Okay. Prior notifications of conflict of interest.
Madam Mayor, I have received 2 written disclosures of conflict of interest, those being from Councillor Paula Piccinini for item 10.7 concerning Ruffy Creek Linear Park Management Plan, consideration of submissions and endorsement, the interest being an indirect interest due to residential amenity, and Councillor Conlon for item 11.2 concerning North East Link proposal, Council's response, the interest being an indirect interest due to close association.
Item number 4, confirmation of minutes. Do I have a mover? Councillor Conlon.
Yeah, I'd like to move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council held on 29th of August 2017 and the special meeting of the Council held on 12th of September 2017 be confirmed.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Piccinini. All those in favour? Carried. Item number 5, verbal questions from the public.
There are no questions, Madam Mayor.
Items number 6, presentations. I have a presentation this evening. Councillors and myself recently attended the welcome reception for His Holiness Pope Theodosius II held at the Coptic Church in Donvale. The event marked the inaugural visit of the Pope of Alexandria, the Patriarch of the See of St Mark, His Holiness Pope Theodosius II to Melbourne. His Holiness presented a gift to the City of Manningham, which I had the pleasure of accepting and would like to now formally present the gift to Council. Thank you. Item number 7, petitions.
There are no petitions, Madam Mayor.
Item number 8, admission of urgent business.
There are no urgent business, Madam Mayor.
Item 9, planning permit applications. 9.1, planning application PL 16/026965 at 666 Doncaster Road, Doncaster, for the use and development of the land for the construction of a 13-storey building comprising of 161 dwellings, a restaurant and 3 retail premises, associated basement car parking, a reduction to the standard car parking requirements, variation to the carriageway easement E.2 on title plan 322585J, variation to the standard loading and unloading requirements and alteration of access to a road in a road zone category 1. Do I have a mover? Councillor Haynes.
Madam Mayor, I move that the alternative recommendation be adopted.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor McLeish. Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Plan Melbourne has identified Box Hill as one of the 5 satellite cities, not Doncaster. Yet the State Government Planning Authority has put a strategy of heavy densification in and around the hill and along our main roads. This policy is ruining our city and pushing people out of their homes. And on the 31st of March this year, we were hit with more changes of the Manningham planning scheme without consultation. I disagree with many of the proposed development applications, and unfortunately, there are ones like this that a refusal would not achieve the outcome desired by many. I thank the officers for the hard work of working with the many conditions that are now within this report to assist in giving some level of assistance for the local residents affected by this. So, councillors, this application before us fits within the planning scheme, and I ask for us all to support the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor McLeish?
Nothing to add, Madam Mayor.
Any speakers against? Councillor Chen?
Madam Mayor, even with the officer's recommendation, I'm afraid that I'm unable to support the application for the following reasons. Firstly, the reduction of car spaces. I'm not convinced that the reduction of car spaces is appropriate. The application makes assumption that many of the patrons will be locals arriving on foot. Visitors and patrons are willing to use public transportation. In reality, this may not be the case. The application also makes assumption that no demand for retail shops in the evening, but it is very possible that any retail shops would like to open on Thursday or Friday nights. Second, my reason is overshadowing and loss of daylight. Overshadowing is always an issue which needs good design and enough setback to reduce the impact to the existing residents. Daylight is also very important to the health and amenity. In Manningham planning scheme, daylight to existing windows objective is prescribed under clause 5404(3). Although it is not a matter that is contemplated within the activity center zone, other beyond the setback provision, it is important to make it into account when assessing amenity impact. My third reason is wind caused by high-rise apartments. Although wind assessment was submitted with the application, which makes no recommendation for design modifications. I'm concerned that when more and more high-rise apartments are built, they are exposed to the increased wind speed. It also leads to discomfort, not only for pedestrian walking, but also for the cyclist, and especially the frail and disabled. For those reasons, I'm afraid that I will not support the application, even with the officer's conditions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any speakers for? Councillor Goff?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'll rise to support this particular motion in that it does fit within our Doncaster Hill strategy, and it is it's basically in all compliant with that. I do take on point a number of Councillor Chen's issues with regard to the walking and all the rest, because yes, most people that live in Manningham do rely on motor cars, but we're not talking about a lowering of the number of cars that are required for the flats and units. That is set and it is still the same. What we're talking about is a reduction in visitor car parks, and yes, I do believe that that is something that perhaps in the future we might actually look at that ratio in Doncaster Hill, even though that ratio has been set in the Doncaster Hill strategy from the start. However, in regard to issues of the light and the buildings, everybody for more than 10 years have known the areas, these areas of Doncaster Hill, and the envelopes and the heights of the buildings going beside them. And we did anticipate this many years ago, and just because one building goes up first, it really shouldn't take away the rights of the building that goes up next, because there will be people in that building, but there'll be all sorts of issues such as view lines and everything else that people will be losing from those particular buildings. And one of them is, yes, when you do build buildings that let's say 10 stories tall or whatever, they will cast a shadow line, and yes, it will be in it. But that is not, the Res Code rulings are not rulings that are used in this particular area. There are a different set of rulings that we use to assess developments in these particular areas. And indeed, if it was in a regular residential area, well, we wouldn't be having the height to begin with. But yes, it wouldn't go to res code, but in most of the other, we do actually run the res code over a lot of these buildings just to see how it does compare, but in this particular instance, it is compliant with the planning scheme, and seeing it is compliant, and I believe that it is what we need to do to get it through. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Any speakers against? Councillor Zafiropoulos.
Madam Mayor, I agree with Councillor Chen's comments in relation to this issue. We have been accustomed to the complaints by a number of residents about the undesirable development that we're having. I understand the reasons for it. We have accepted, unfortunately, a planning scheme that allows for a lot of those things. However, the reasons for my objections, given that we have got some rules in the planning scheme, I would expect that those rules to be followed 100%. We have a situation, for instance, in relation to the design element in the roof area. What is required is 15%. This particular application has 17.4%, and yet we let it go. Already, Councillor Chen mentioned the parking. We were meant to have 236 car parking spaces. The application gives us only 227. I don't care whether it's for visitors or not. We all know that those spaces are often interchanged, and therefore I would expect that if the rules say 236, we should insist that we get 36. I think I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, councillor Zafiropoulos. Anyone else to speak for?
Question, Madam Mayor?
Councillor Goff.
I just want to get an answer from the officers with regard to this. Do the rules of Doncaster Hill Planning Scheme insist on more car parks than what is provided, or is that are we doing something there that we haven't got enough from what our planning scheme says within this site of Doncaster Hill?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I might need to clarify that question, but there is a parking overlay that's been in Doncaster Hill for more than 10 years.
And is this compliant with that?
It is
Okay,
compliant.
so it's within the rules that we have at council that this actually satisfies Manningham. It's not, as I thought Councillor Zafiropoulos was saying, it's not outside those rules that we have for this area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Respect, can I clarify this issue? Because
Councillor Zafiropoulos, stand up.
Question?
Question?
yeah, in relation to the question, on page 37 of the report, it says the scheme requires a total of 236 car parking spaces for the proposed development. That's what it says. That's what I read.
So what's your question, councillor?
There's no question. I'm simply saying that I don't quite understand the answer.
Okay. All right. Any speakers for?
Could I ask for clarification? I'm confused.
You have a question, councillor Conlon?
I'm hearing two different things here. I'm trying to get clarification. Is that okay if we get clarification from the officers?
The director, Teresa Dominic.
Yeah, there's two parts to that. So I understood that Councillor Jeff Goff was talking about the parking overlay that sets the rate for the bedrooms and the visitor car parking. What Councillor Zafiropoulos is talking about is when you've got a mixed-use building, there is a standard, you ask for a traffic assessment, and that traffic assessment is done under the clauses of, there are different parts of the planning scheme, and that is done by the standard rates that's accepted by the industry. So there are two parts, so that's why it's hard to say that both of them are right, because there's one set for the residential and the visitor car parking, and then when you've got the restaurant and the mixed use, then there is a standard way of doing that that's accepted across Melbourne, and that has been applied.
Okay. Any speakers for?
Further question?
Question, councillor Galbally.
Again to our officer, the car parking, is that because with the, are we allowing fewer car parks here, or have the officers recommended its acceptance of it, because we're expecting some of the residents of the apartments to also be the recipients of the, or the visitors to the restaurants and the shops? Is there any double up there
That is
between the
correct.
residents and the shops and the restaurant.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and this is not just in Doncaster Hill, it will be any of our activity centres where we have mixed use. That is a standard practice of doing traffic assessments and the allocation of parking in a mixed-use building.
Okay, thank you.
Any other speakers for? Then I can ask Councillor Haynes to close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thank all my fellow councillors that have had a few things to say, and I do agree that this is definitely not something that we would prefer, but it is within the Hill strategy. And for someone that's been to all the consultation submitters meetings and not only communicated with council as well as the objectors, I am more than aware that these extra conditions that we've got, fellow councillors, may, if this went to VCAT with the expensive cost, be removed. And so we don't really have the overshadowing because it does comply with the state planning scheme, and the planning, there's no planning basis for rejecting this. So I ask fellow councillors to support this.
I'll put that to a vote. Those in favour? Against? Carried. I understand there are a number of people who are here in relation to item 11.2, North East Link proposal. Council's response. Councillors, I'd like to propose that we bring the item 11.2 forward to consider now. Do I have a mover?
I'd like to move that, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Galbally.
I'd just like to move that we bring 11.2 forward.
Do you want to read it?
That the item 11.2, North East Link proposal, Council's response be considered prior to item 10.1 on this evening's agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McLeish. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay. 11.2, North East Link proposal. Councillor's response. Councillor Conlon.
Councillors, I wish to disclose that I have a conflict of interest in this item, being an indirect interest due to residential amenity, and I'll be leaving the room for the duration of this discussion.
Thank you. Councillor Conlon is now leaving the room. We'll wait until that has happened. Do I have a mover? 4. Councillor McLeish.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that the alternate motion be adopted as published in the council papers.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Galbally. Councillor McLeish.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, just to clarify, is that in all council papers that everyone's got?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillors, I've proposed this alternate recommendation because I think that it is important that we are quite clear in the motion that we put before our community some of the conditions that we believe are imperative for this particular project to contemplate. They are to some extent covered in the associated paper that will guide the final wording of the submission made by our council staff. But I think it's important that some of these matters are brought forward and quite specifically translated into the motion, which is why I put forward the alternate motion. For example, I have suggested that we need to quite specifically preserve the Eastern Freeway, to preserve along the Eastern Freeway for public transport purposes both the existing median reservation from Hobble Street to Bulleen Road and an additional alignment from Bulleen Road to Doncaster Road. Because if we are going to have changes to the Eastern Freeway, if we're going to have a new freeway introduced into this part of our municipality, we need to be certain, no matter what, that the reservation for the expansion of the rail network in Melbourne and the public transport network in Melbourne includes that reservation being made available for public transport, be it a BRT or be it heavy rail. It's quite ironic that the government is proposing an upgrade to the freeway network in Melbourne, and the most substantial upgrade to the freeway network in Melbourne in its history, the most expensive road project in Melbourne, potentially in Australia's history, to suburban freeway network, and yet there is no consideration effectively for public transport. If you read the technical submission produced by the NLEA, what you'll find is they talk about, for public transport, the capacity of the proposed freeway to improve buses. That's it. That's what they've got. There's no consideration of construction of additional capacity for Doncaster. Ironic that the one municipality in Melbourne that singularly does not have heavy rail, the one that does not have a rail network running through it, is getting a proposal that on 3 of the 4 options would substantially increase the road network through the city, and yet there is no inclusion of provision of increased capability and functionality for public transport in our municipality. It's quite extraordinary and very disappointing. I have also included some material on the need for any such proposal to replace community recreation and sporting facilities before any road is built. This is critical. The 3 of the 4 routes that bisect our community threaten public facilities, public sporting facilities. Our council has built these facilities at great expense through incredible support from the community clubs that occupy those facilities. They've made substantial financial contributions to those constructions, and they run their clubs from these facilities week in, week out. The Yarra Valley Junior Football League operates from one of the sites for option A. We've got a baseball club out in Mullamullum that 2 of the routes would potentially destroy, or a BMX club, or a football club. All of these organisations depend upon these facilities being in existence. And if we're going to get a new road through one of these 3 routes, it needs to ensure that facilities still exist for those clubs to survive and operate no matter what happens during construction. We need to get a commitment from the government that they will build these facilities before they demolish anything, so that our community social fabric can be maintained while such a road is delivered. There are many more points I could make here, fellow councillors, about what should be done to conserve the lived environment that we have in our beautiful city. No matter what happens with the decision on these 3 options before us, there will be great disruption to our city, and there will be great disruption to our community. We certainly don't want to see any toll roads, or tolls I should say, introduced onto the Eastern Freeway. And if we do see a Reynolds Road extension, we don't want any tolls on that. And worst of all, councillors, if we do see a situation where when we see a situation where property is acquired from citizens in our community, we need to ensure that our citizens are treated equitably. We don't want to see someone losing 30% of their property and having their amenity destroyed. If the NLEA is going to acquire the property of the citizens of our community, they should acquire the entire property and enable those citizens to leave a situation next to a freeway, get full compensation, and move on with their lives. And those acquisitions have to happen as soon as possible.
Time.
We do not want to see our citizens left in a holding pattern for a decade while their property is acquired. And I ask you, councillors, to support this particular motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Garbly?
Look, no, the only thing I'd like to add is that I think there's still a lot of information that can come to us, and a lot more communication. I'm supporting Councillor McLeish's motion purely because it allows us to sort of stipulate that we want whichever process they go through, meaning the road, that we could actually get compensation not only for our community with our sports users, but also for any resident that's been affected on any site.
Thank you. Any speakers against? Councillor.
Councillors, I'd just like to add that it's my intention to move a subsequent motion in relation to this item.
Okay, Councillor.
Madam Mayor, could I move to suspend standing orders for the duration of this item?
Do I have a second for that?
Wish to speak?
Councillor Galbally, second that. All those in favour? Carried. Councillor Piccinini, would you like to continue?
Are we going to vote?
We'll vote on the first one. Yes, thank you, Councillor. So, any other speakers?
Oh, well, if you, no.
Councillor McLeish, would you like to sum up then?
There's no speaker against.
There's no speaker against? No? Okay. So let's put it to a vote. Those in favour? Carried. Councillor Piccinini.
Madam Mayor, I seek to move this subsequent motion, which reads, based on the information presented so far and engagement with the Manningham community, Council does not support the proposed option A, alignment through Bulleen, due to the adverse environmental, residential and traffic impacts, and it does not create efficient freight movement around Melbourne.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Goff. Councillor Piccinini.
Madam Mayor, option A can be more aptly described as a tolled northern arterial, not a north-east link, but a northern arterial. It's no coincidence that the first slides of Mr. Elliott's presentation last night at the Community Forum were of the Northern Growth Corridor. Mr. Elliott, the Director of the North East Link Authority, informed us that 77,000 people have recently moved into the Northern Corridor, and it is estimated that approximately 200,000 people will settle in this area in years to come. Option A is a means for the residents of Thomastown, Laylaw, Mill Park, Epping and the new suburbs of Doreen and Mernda to commute into the CBD. These residents will take the ring road to Greensborough and then they'll travel through Greensborough and Bulleen into town. Melbourne is a CBD-centric city. Our public transport system all leads into the CBD. And with our declining manufacturing base, more and more jobs are in the city. So this option, option A, is a commuter route for the new northern suburbs. Option A includes the widening of the Eastern Freeway, but interestingly, the estimated cost of option A doesn't include the widening of the freeway. Option A appears to be the most cost-effective option in the proposal, but it may not be. The widening of the Eastern Freeway will come at a cost, and that cost is more likely to be tolls. Option A will not only affect the residents of Bulleen, but it will also affect all the residents of Manningham, because we will be commuting into the CBD and paying tolls every day, just like the residents that live along the Monash Freeway. But unlike the residents that live along the Monash Freeway, we don't have the alternative of a train system. Option A also cuts through the most densely populated area of our municipality. Homes will be compulsorily acquired. Land from Trinity, Kerry, Marcelin College and the Veneto Club will be compulsorily acquired. It will be highly disruptive to residents and their children. 1,400 boys attend Marcelin College every school day. Thousands, literally thousands of children use the sporting grounds at Kerry, Trinity and Bulleen Park every week, particularly during the footy season. The Veneto Club, which is celebrating its 50th year, they also have sporting facilities and high patronage. A 10-year building project, which will probably be an overpass, right across their front door will cause significant disruption to the schooling of our children, to sporting events and activities, to enjoyment of the parklands, and to our community feeling connected. And you would have to feel for the people that live in Ilma Court and Rob Close. Option A completely cuts off their suburb, their suburb Bulleen, and they'll be living right next to a 6-lane tolled arterial highway. This is an area of significant cultural significance. Bulleen Reserve was a gathering place of the Wurundjeri people for thousands of years. That's where they met other tribes of the Kulin Nation. It's sacred ground, and option A proposes to build a great big overpass over it. Heidi Gallery is of national significance. It is the creative heartland of the collective known as the Heidelberg Artists. And Banksia Park and the Yarra River are environmentally sensitive areas. Yet the proposal is to put a great big tunnel and overpass through this area. The intention of the North East Link is to complete the missing link of a ring road, a road to accommodate the movement of freight around the city, to take trucks out of our city, to take freight from Port Hastings, the Mornington Peninsula, Dandenong, around the city and to the airport or interstate. But option A clearly doesn't complete a ring road. What it does is it brings trucks and heavy vehicles through our suburbs to the edge of the CBD, bringing with it pollution, congestion, and danger and hazards to other road users. So I urge my fellow councillors to support this motion and oppose option A.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Goff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And as I rise, I actually have to agree, and I do, with absolutely everything that Councillor Piccinini has talked about there, because in a nutshell, that actually sums up the case of why option A is so unpalatable for the people of Manningham. It will go through an area, it will destroy a lot of our infrastructure and school infrastructure and all the rest down there. But the trouble is, we're asked to make a decision on something where we don't know the actual route. They've just got dotted lines. There's no finer details. And it's very, very hard to actually look at it. So you can't see that. The interesting thing is that it is absolutely correct. Now, they haven't come and said that they're going to toll the Eastern Freeway. I asked the question and that was said, oh, that's a political decision. But putting 4 extra lanes on, 2 going one way, 2 going the other, onto the Eastern Freeway, which hasn't been added onto option A. So it's nearly deception, the way in which those options have been put out, because option A looks the cheapest, it's the shortest and all the rest. However, when you start adding on the costs of the Eastern Freeway and duplicating that and putting extra lanes all the way up to Springvale Road, you might find that actually option A becomes very expensive. And that gets down to the reason. It is not about what the ring road was about and what the North East Authority was to put on of transport links around our city. It is around the city. It is to be really the continuation of the southeastern and all the way around to the northern ring road. And that is what it's for. So those trucks don't come into the city, competing with traffic going into the city, blocking up the freeway, which will be then a tollway, and it will be blocked up because indeed this will be an arterial collector from around. It already is a collector from the south and southeast, the east and southeast, but it will also then be a collector for the north and northeast, and even getting over to west. People getting onto there, getting around over those ways. So it is a far bigger impact on Manningham. Now, if this road is at any way in the city of Manningham above ground, then it will have major impact. It will be a major difficulty and problem, especially with the intersections. Let's take the intersection of Manningham Road and Bulleen Road. On and off there. Do we stop on this ring road as we come around? You've also got things on the Bulleen Road and the freeway. What turn-offs? What things have to go in there? What flyovers and all the rest? You've often seen photographs of these intersections of freeways in America and everything else, and you look at the top and they've got these two big round roads leading onto it. You just have to go out the Northern Ring Road, and if you want to go up the Hume Highway, you start seeing what is flying around there. That's going to be flying all the way around Bulleen and all the way around Bulleen Road, at Manningham Road and at the freeway, if it is above ground. So, councillors, I support that we actually, if in the interests of all of the people and not wanting to pay tolls all the time into the city from everyone that lives in Manningham, to actually support this particular motion.
Thank you, councillor. Any speakers against? Councillor Galbally. Sorry.
We both do.
Sorry. Was that a councillor? Sorry, Councillor McLeish. Would be helpful if it wasn't the pen flicking. Councillor McLeish against.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, the problem I have this particular motion is that what it effectively says is that all of the attributes that are not liked about having a freeway in Bulleen are acceptable in Mullumbullen, because all of the effects that are described in Bulleen similarly are proposed by options B and C in Mullumbullen. Warrandyte would be cut off by flyovers as a freeway goes through and crosses through over Warrandyte Road, wanders in around following the power line reservation, destroying community facilities, right through the back of Reynolds Road, through Stinton's Reserve and into the hillside. We have a massive flyover. The flyovers that we've heard that are so unacceptable in Bulleen, apparently by this motion, are acceptable in Mullumbullen ward. If they're not acceptable in Bulleen, then surely they're not acceptable anywhere in Manningham. I can't see why this council should seek to abandon the good residents of Mullumbullen ward to the very same problems that have been identified with the Bulleen component proposal. Why should Reynolds Road be extended through Park Orchards, through Wonga Park? Why should those communities suffer from an arterial road being driven through them? We have very environmentally sensitive areas intersected by options B and C. Option B plans to put a freeway parallel to the Yarra River from West of Falls Park through the back of Templestowe all the way to Warrandyte before it continues along the same options route as B and C through the Mullumbullen Creek corridor. These areas are no less environmentally sensitive than the Bolan area in Bulleen. I cannot see why we should as a council seek to nominate losers in Mullumbullen from this proposal by selectively picking a winner in Bulleen and saying Bulleen should not have a route through it. Surely we as a council can do what we are elected to do, to stand on the principles that we espouse for this particular project, to protect the amenity of all residents of our city, not just the selected residents who are impacted in Bulleen. Surely we have to represent all our residents. And if we are going to speak against all of these attributes, then surely that is a motion to speak against the entire proposal, not just the impact upon Bulleen residents. We as a council have a responsibility to stand on behalf of our entire community, to lay down principles that are not negotiable as far as we are concerned in our discussions with NELA. But make no bones about it, I am of the view that Melbourne needs a ring road. Our community, in my opinion, from the conversations that I've had in our community, firmly believes that some form of north-east link is required. That is why I have moved the alternate motion, and that is why I'm arguing for us to support our entire community and not be selective.
Thank you. Any speakers for?
Can I move against?
Councillor Haynes?
Madam Mayor, I have some things to say, but I'm not certain that it's for or against.
Okay.
So can I just...
You're
Madam Mayor,
welcome.
could I move to suspend?
We've already suspended. They're still suspended, yes.
Okay,
Councillor.
excellent. Well, thank you.
But I'm just trying to keep
Because-
some balance.
Because, yes,
Thank
the
you.
environmental sensitivities, but I do have something that I want to say. So the state government's basis for having a north-east link has been clear from the beginning. It's been a headline to create efficient freight movement around Melbourne. And how that can be achieved, I don't see all of these options actually achieving all of that. The tunnels, the trucks won't be able to get through them that they've talked about. Is that definitely, they're going to increase the sizes of the tunnels? It's not going to solve traffic congestion. As a matter of fact, it will increase it. And as a Koonung ward councillor, none of the options go through my ward. So therefore it can be said that I'm unaffected. I actually don't have to make a political decision. But as I'm very aware that we all act on behalf of the whole community. So I do need to say that I don't agree with the officer's recommendation as it was, and I do agree with both aspects that have been put before me today, because I care too much about the greater community and I make decisions that will affect all people. Yes, the whole of Manningham matters, and that includes the Green Wedge, the parklands and other aspects, and these road proposals will affect everyone in a negative way. It is clear that more car flow will occur, and the Eastern cannot take more cars along the Eastern Freeway. The Eastern Freeway adds more of a gridlock than that already exists within Hoddle Street. The width widening up to Chandler Highway of the Eastern does not extend to or through that Hoddle Street area. It's going to create more gridlock and more traffic congestion. It does not achieve the create efficient freight movement around Melbourne. And I truly believe that the Bulleen option definitely increases a major issue along the Eastern, whether it becomes tolled or not, and I hope it wouldn't be. So I totally disagree with even considering the option A, I think, because that route does not achieve the state government's goal of creating efficient movement. That said, with the short time that Council has had to put a position in place and the short consultation, I find this difficult decision to be made because, unfortunately, I believe we have not been well informed.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Galbally.
Yeah. Look, as far as Councillor Puccinini's amendment, is it?
Subsequent.
A motion, a subsequent amendment. Look, everything she said is true, although obviously all those effects are going to be experienced by all of Bulleen and the area that's outlined on option A. But I think even with hearing Councillor McLeish's response, you can see that it's already divisive in our community, because basically we've got, Manningham is the only council that has got 3 options that actually run through it. And I really don't think that we as councillors should be deciding which one we prefer. I think we, there's a lot more information that has to come to hand, and I think the best we can do at the moment is ensure that we protect our environment, protect our residents as much as we can. And as far as the objective of the state government, it isn't only for the freight movement, it's also to accommodate the outer growth areas. And of course, no one wants to see it through their backyard, but that's exactly what seems to be happening to Manningham, because that's where it's all getting directed, unless they go for option D, which I'd like to be the same as every other council and say, not in my backyard, let's go to option D, because that's not in Manningham. But I know they're not going to listen to that, because there's a lot more information that has to come to hand. And I think at this stage, I don't want to see a divisive Manningham. I don't want us choosing one option against the other, because one option is going to affect schools and whatever, and the other one's going to affect the environment, and wherever we go in Manningham, we're going to be affecting our residents. So for all that, I would say that that's where Councillor McLeish's motion actually protected our citizens right across the board in ensuring that we get the best outcome for everyone, not only for one specific area in Manningham. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I note that Councillor Piccinini's subsequent motion is not about preference. It's about does not support the proposed option A. Why Councillor Piccinini put that motion is because last night's forum that most councillors attended, and perhaps most of the attendees were there last night. You can hear the voices from the community, because from what we have, the current issue published by NELA, option A, the criteria are all set there. They tick all the boxes nearly. But other options, option B and option D, you can see many crosses. And from last night, the representative that gave us a briefing, we have the feeling that you can't justify, you just have the feeling that it has been, nearly has been predetermined. You can hear the Bulleen residents have that kind of feeling because they nearly told us that there will be a tolled road, there will be tolled, and quite clearly from the representative's mouth. And I'm also concerned about the two interchanges in Manningham, especially the interchanges along the Thompson-Bulleen Roads and Eastern Highway interchanges. That will no doubt increase the traffic volume from the east, from the north, from the southeast. That will create traffic congestion and blockage, and will have adverse impact to our park and ride, Doncaster Hill Activity Centre, and along Doncaster Road. And I don't want to see the Doncaster Road become the second or the next Hoddle Street. And option A has also great social impact to the whole community. A large numbers, as Councillor Piccinini has mentioned about a large members of residents, schools, sporting clubs will be affected. And the particular social impact cannot be modeled in the laboratory. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Any other speakers? Want to close?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let me make it very clear that it's not to be inferred by this subsequent motion that option B or C or D are the preferred options. But it is interesting that Councillor McLeish makes an inference argument, because that's exactly the argument that I'm making. That in a political context, the inference here will be that if we don't reject option A, the North East Link Authority and the state government will infer that we don't mind. That we don't really mind that they put a great big tunnel through Bulleen and a huge overpass past our schools and our sporting facilities and the Veneto Club. That's politically what will be the inference will be, and that's why we as a council have to say that we do mind. We mind that in the most densely populated area of Manningham, that this, where option A is, we mind that it will affect their well-being and our suburbs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Piccinini. I'll put it now to a vote. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Councillors, I too have a subsequent motion. The council undertakes a survey of the Manningham community, the whole Manningham community, to gauge their views on the proposed corridor options. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. I'm going to put that straight to a vote.
Do you want to speak?
Oh, subsending, we still have,
We need to offer councillor the opportunity.
yeah, sorry, councillor Goff, you can speak to that.
Seeing you're not
because
talking, I'm not talking.
I'll go on.
We've still got suspended orders, so anyone can still speak. Okay. All right, I'm going to put that to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. Now, if I may ask for a mover to resume standing orders. Councillor McLeish, do I have a seconder? Councillor Galbally, all those in favour? Carried. And I'll have Councillor Conlon return to the chamber. Thank you. Councillor Conlon is now in the chamber. Item 10, Planning and Environment. 10.1, Amendment C109 Manningham Planning Scheme, Land Subject to Inundation Overlay and Special Building Overlay. Consideration of submissions and request for a panel hearing.
Madam Mayor, councillors, I have an interest in this matter. The interest is not in conflict of interest. The interest is not a conflict of interest, as the interest is one in common with a large class of persons and as such is exempted by S77A5 of the Local Government Act of 1989, which allows me to continue to take part in the debate and vote on this matter.
Thank you. So, do I have a mover? Councillor Zafiropoulos?
I move that the recommendation be adopted. I'm sorry, that the alternate motion be adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second, but can we make...
Councillor Goff? So, Councillor Zafiropoulos, your alternate motion.
Councillors, this matter is extremely important for a number of reasons, including the fact that it affects adversely a large number of our ratepayers. It is also a very complex issue and requires technical expertise in order to comprehend the methodology used by the modelling and the implications of the various options available to council. As an elected councillor, I believe that my decision-making must take into account the interest of the thousands of affected property owners, as well as the interests of the municipality. The importance of this matter was identified in the previous council plan, which included that in 2014-15, and I quote, Council would identify further land subject to flooding in the Manningham Planning Scheme to improve management of future catchment flood levels. Such action was reinforced by other initiatives, such as the State Government's Victorian Floodplain Management Strategy and by the Auditor General's 2005 report, Managing Stormwater Flooding Risks in Melbourne, which was urging councils to take urgent action. The council has responded to these developments with the most recent initiative being the C109 amendment. A lot of work has been undertaken in the last couple of years by council, Melbourne Water and consultants, and I should add a number of our affected residents. At the 21st February 2017 council meeting, I successfully moved a deferral motion in order to enable council to have more extensive consultations with the community. The intensive work by officers of the last 6 months and the 3 recent community consultations proved very valuable as they highlighted issues in the process and emphasise the significant impact on property owners if the amendment were to be implemented as presented. I was particularly impressed by the level of expertise available in our municipality in relation to such a specialised area. On evaluating the way ahead, I took into account, one, the fact that we are compelled to revise the Manningham planning scheme in order to minimise the impact of potential major flooding in our municipality. Two, the margin of error of the macro modelling process as demonstrated by the presentations of the affected property owners and by the large number of changes that had to be made following the original modelling report presented to Council at its meeting on 17 February 2017. Three, the ongoing revision of Melbourne Water's modelling and data calibration. Four, the fact that Water Technologies' independent review, even though it supported the methodology used, it recommended changes in relation to SB03. In light of the above, as a decision maker, I put forward the alternate resolution. I urge you, fellow councillors, to support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Goff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And for people that may be around and on the table that don't know the actual motion, it actually is saying that we are going to refer the land under inundation overlay and the SBO1 to continue through the process to panel, and we are abandoning the SBO2 and SBO3 parts. And indeed, Madam Mayor, this has been an issue that's presented shortly after it went out to the community. Now, we do need to be accurate, and I want to say from the outset, we do have drainage problems in Manningham, and we do need to address them. We have done a lot of work on that since these maps went out, and we have a very, very good understanding of a lot of the things that happened in Manningham. And that is at a bigger level. But when it came down to an individual property level, it was harder to say that yes or not. And as a person, I'd like to be comfortable. If I'm putting something on somebody's property, I'd like to be extremely comfortable, like 100% sure that the effect is what we're saying it is. And I at the moment have myself, I still continue to have doubts about that. And indeed, we have learnt a lot, and we've done a lot of work on that, and we've found a lot about our drainage. And the people that have worked in the departments, and I have to congratulate the engineers and all the engineering department for all the amount of work that they have done over the past year and a half, 2 years, to actually finely tune, look at individual properties, tirelessly working there. And the hours that have been put in by those officers has just been amazing. And I really do think Council needs to thank them very much for all of that work, because indeed it has been something that has been out of the ordinary. And getting to the situation now that we have an understanding that will inform our future drainage strategy, and we will be able to, we do still take on the responsibility. Councillors, putting an overlay on a property is not going to solve whether a property is going to, maybe, on a 1 in 100 year storm, if it went above that house, maybe have some water that flows past. It's not going to do anything to the houses that are already there, because they're already there. What it does do is it says, look, come in for a discussion. That's what those basically SBOs said. Come in for a discussion, and we'll sort of talk about the height that you need to build your house on. Well, people have to come in a whole lot of other areas anyway to council, and they could have had those conversations. But it gets down to the confidence of council relying on that to ensure that it was that, perhaps everything's not 100%, but at least 99% sure that that is the effect on that particular property because of cut and fill, what people put on the property, the buildings, the changing of the levels that actually happen individually with people. And listening to the community and the feedback, it has been a long process. It's been going on for a long time. but I think it's been a worthwhile process if we all councillors agree to this particular motion to actually just refer the land under inundation. And let me say this, the land under inundation in SBO 1 are the Melbourne water overlays. They are the ones that Melbourne Water need to put in. And the SBO 2 and the SBO 3 are the things of council. They're the ones that council might have put on for its mapping. So, councillors, please support this motion, as I believe that it is the best way forward for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Any speakers against?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move a motion to suspend standing orders for the duration of this item.
Do I have a seconder to Councillor McLeish's? Councillor Galbally. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. So,
For the motion, if I may, Madam Mayor.
Councillor McLeish.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I'm speaking for the motion before us, and I'm saying that because I have learnt a lot through the last 2 years' worth of this project, if not longer, progressing to its current point. If you'd asked me 6 months ago, I wouldn't be speaking in support of this motion. If you'd asked me 3 months ago, I wouldn't be speaking in support of this motion. But I am speaking in favour of it now, and I'd like to thank my fellow councillor Goff for some of the things that he's done to ensure that it's got to this point. The challenge we have here, councillors, is that council has a responsibility to undertake mapping of its drainage flows. We have to do this. We cannot ignore this. The Auditor General has said that accurate flood mapping is considered to be a critical foundation for the development of sound drainage and flood management. The mapping that we've done so far has done 5 catchments. There are still 2 more, Jumping Creek and Brushy Creek. So in passing this particular motion, councillors, what we are not doing is actually implementing overlays on critical parts of our municipality. I'm addressing SBO2 specifically, because when you look at SBO2, what it says is this is the point where flows exceed 100 mil. That's 4 inches of water, councillors, starting from the point where water exceeds 4 inches in depth. For us as a council to permanently leave this aspect of overland flows in our municipality unmapped and not in an overlay is not something we can afford to do in the long term. I appreciate it hasn't been done up until now. That is a failing of previous levels of government. It's an historical artefact of this city, and we will come back to this. There are 3,950 properties in the current maps impacted by SBO2. And when you're living at the bottom of a street and it's 4 inches of water halfway down the hill and the water accumulates as it comes down the hill and you're still in an SBO2 and that water has accumulated to a substantial depth and another road comes in adding more water to that and suddenly the depth of the water at your point in the street is 200 mil, as we've seen in Geelong only 18 months ago, when the Geelong Road was flooded to a depth of 6 inches, when Geelong Station was completely overwhelmed by metres of water in the heart of a city like Geelong. That's what happens when a 100-year rain event happens. They got 74 mils of water in an hour. At Avalon, they got 54 mils in Geelong in an hour. When you get that sort of flow from a rain event, there are going to be problems in our city. People are going to be flooded, and our community deserves the right to know where that flooding will be. Future development on land that is impacted should be properly informed by an overlay, and future owners of property should be informed. It's disappointing that, in the extreme, that it doesn't exist currently in our planning scheme, but we cannot fix what wasn't done by past councils. We can only do what we are here to do today. We are the current council, and we will need to ensure that an SBO2 is pursued, I believe, councillors. That said, I am not confident in what's presented before us so far, and I do not believe today that SBO2 should proceed as it is, nor SBO3. But I do believe we are going to need to come back to this. Outside of that, councillors, I think there is a lot of things to be learnt from this, and I am foreshadowing a supplementary motion tonight that addresses some of those concerns for us to consider.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have no level of comfort with the SBO 1, 2, 3 or even the LSO, but I am very aware now of how this affects everyone at different levels. Pardon the pun. Levels. Anyway, I've never been more informed that the work that has been done is extremely costly and tiring. And for all of it, it is obvious tonight, and this will not be put to rest with tonight's motion. But what it will do is help give people an understanding of how they move forward, and hopefully the information that the council has with the LSIO and the SBO1, when it goes to panel, that they continue to do the great work that they've been doing to be able to work with the residents and ensure that they are well represented. We've heard some very extremely distressing and emotional arguments. My concern for each person who was given their time and their story and their circumstances, I want to thank them all for being engaged and sharing their stories. And it's part of my consideration to support this motion, because the distress that has been going on does need to get to a level of that it ends. So with the first two parts of this, with the motion that Councillor Zafiropoulos has put up, I do support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Haynes. Any other speakers? Okay. So I'm going to put Councillor Zafiropoulos' motion to a vote. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay. So is now a subsequent motion? So now we have
I have a
subsequent
supplementary motion.
supplementary motion coming before us from Councillor McLeish.
Suspending orders back on.
We have an unsuspended.
Madam Mayor, I move that the following motion, that council use the knowledge of drainage network improvements needed gained through the C109 amendment process to inform the prioritisation of drainage maintenance and upgrades in the next 4 years. Proceeds with the investment of a record $10.8 million in drainage works over the next 4 years in our current budget, and prepares a plan to increase that investment for the next budget. And finally, completes the upgrade to the asset management system to better enable efficient planning and management of drainage assets.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Zafiropoulos. So, Councillor McLeish.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, the point of this particular motion is that it indicates to our community what we as a council have been doing to improve investment in drainage works in our city. This particular council has, through its budget earlier this year, achieved a record investment in drainage construction in the forward budget, a record annual investment. And I am seeking that the council endeavours to actually increase that funding to improve the efficacy of the drainage network in our city. And I'm asking that our council continues its support for the improvement in information technology used for management of such facilities in our city. This council has had the foresight to ensure that we are continuing to invest in improvement on this vital infrastructure in our city, and I believe it is the intent of this council to continue doing so. It's this council that have made these initiatives. They have done so in silence, certainly. Our community hasn't been aware of the moves that we've been making because they are lost in the detail of a budget and lost in the details of our planning processes for that budget. That's what happens when you're running a business that's $120 million and you're making subtle changes to improve fundamental investment. But this council has been making those changes, has been making those investments, and I believe we need to continue to make those same moves for the benefit of our community. And that's why I'm moving this particular supplementary motion, to highlight that point to our community and to encourage my fellow councillors to continue down that path.
Thank you. Councillor McLeish. So, Councillor Zefropoulos, anything to add?
I think Councillor McLeish has covered the sort of things I'd like to say. This issue has accentuated what a high priority drainage maintenance and construction is for this council. With all the beauty of our topology, we have a lot of issues relating to flooding. We all know that unless we take some action, many of us will suffer the consequences of neglect. And therefore, I think when we considered the budget, I wasn't sure what the priorities were, but now I know that this is a very high priority, and whatever we spent in previous years, we need to consider and explore whether we can increase that spending so that we can protect our property owners who are affected by flooding. Obviously, in a rate capping environment, we do not have a lot of money to be able to do all the things we would like to do, and therefore we need to prioritise low priority areas in order for us to elevate the priority of this particular issue.
Thank you, Councillor Zefropoulos. Councillor Galba, you have a question?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I do have a question. I believe, and I just want to ask whether the 10.8 million in drainage work that Councillor McLeish is suggesting, is that above the current average that we're already spending, which is about 2-point-something million?
Times the average.
Is it what's in the budget?
Well, what's in the budget?
What's in the budget?
Yeah.
It's in the budget.
So it's not extra.
So it's not extra. So what I'm asking then is 10.8 million going to be enough to, as an allowance in a budget, if we want to actually do more than we've already been doing in the last 10 years? Like if we want to upgrade our drainage works without relying on special rates and charges, is that going to be enough to accomplish what Councillor McLeish is suggesting?
We already have a strategy, so when it comes to the next budget, then we can look at that.
It.
Madam Mayor, perhaps Madam Mayor, perhaps there could be an
Councillor Goff?
amendment to the motion to refer and also to refer increases from that budget of 10.8 million to any increases to our mid-year budget review or for the further budgets to increase that even further if need be. So we can refer that as an issue to refer. But yeah, I think perhaps that's something you could amend into it.
Yes, I would be interested in that because I would not like any more extra drainage work to sort of then end up in the special rates and charges schemes to residents.
So I would be asking, would Councillor McLeish be happy with that being reworded?
Madam Mayor, I have said that I'd like it for the next budget. I felt that gave our staff plenty of time to actually do this in a considered way and to consider the priorities, to analyse the priorities and do it in a thorough manner. I don't believe we should be revising our budget in an aggressive time frame because there are going to need to be savings found to fund any increase because we're not going to be able to increase rates to go out and get it. Rate capping is in place, and to try and do that identify adequate priorities, determine what the spending is going to be, and put the money aside. Prefer it to wait until the following budget cycle myself.
Okay, so,
Madam Mayor, perhaps just the words "at least" would be there.
Can't fit future budget discussions here.
Oh, we are.
You can't.
That's what the motion's about, is the 10 point whatever. So if it's referring to that, I'm just saying at least.
It's
Yeah.
That's in the budget now, councillor.
Yes, I know. So we've still got, yes, I know.
But in the mid-year review, you can.
We can
The mid-year review, there is nothing stopping us.
We can always review it and put
Yes.
some more in.
yes,
okay. I'll
Okay.
keep an eye on it. Thank you.
all right.
I have a
So,
question.
So,
question,
no, my
question,
is
question,
that-
councillor Goff.
Is councillor Galby's at least in the acceptable to the mover?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Of at least, proceed with at least 10 million in drainage works.
Thank you.
Over the next 4 years. Okay, and so further. Okay. Question, councillor Haynes.
My question is just some clarification. This is the record. This is the figure that we've already agreed upon within the 4 years, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, and so the only thing that this really does is make certain that we use the mapping that we've got to be able to prioritise those drains. Is that what this?
No, it says prepare a plan to increase that investment for the next budget.
Okay, so we don't have a figure on what that would be. Is that correct?
It's not our job to pick numbers out of thin air in such important matters. It's up to the organisation to do a strategic plan to do that.
Thank you, councillor McLeish. Okay, anyone further to speak? All right. Shall we put that to a vote? All those in favour? Against? Well, there's no one against. It's carried. Thank you.
No one against it, is it unanimous?
It's unanimous.
Can we declare
Should I
it
say? Now,
unanimous?
can I have a motion to resume standing orders? Councillor McLeish. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Goff. Those in favour? Thank you. Carried. Also, if anyone would like to leave the gallery, you're most welcome to. You don't have to stay and be polite. It's already been a long night for you. You're welcome. I'll just let the room clear and then we'll just give just a bit of a breather for the councillors as we then go to 10.2.
I liked it. I just thought there was other things. It's all fine. Totally confused me, really. Yeah, I know. I understand.
Okay, we will now resume. All right, thank you. Thank you for those in the gallery. 10.2, Amendment C114 to Manningham Planning Scheme, 42 Walker Street, Doncaster, consideration of submissions. Do I have a mover? Councillor Chen.
Madam Mayor, I move that the alternative motion is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Do I have a seconder? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Zephyropoulos. Councillor Chen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My alternative motion is about abandon C114 to the Manningham Planning Scheme. Firstly, we need to know what restrictive covenant is. A restrictive covenant is a private treaty or written agreement between the landowners that limits the way land can be used and developed. It runs with the land and binds the new owner. Restrictive covenants are a tool for protecting neighborhood character and restricting long-term future development, separate to controls under local planning schemes. There are 16 objectors who are beneficiaries property of the covenant, object the proposed amendments. The objectives are concerned about the increased traffic, pedestrian safety, restrictive access to the neighborhood, and density. These negative impacts identified by the objectors are valid concerns. Some objectors said they have signed the contract of sale and have chosen to live in the area with a single dwelling covenant. Have restrictive covenants been removed before? Yes. But there is currently only one removal covenant in Manningham Planning Scheme. This is Planning Scheme Amendment C72 that involves 6 lots. Those lots are all in the same plan of subdivision and are all located in Doncaster Hill Activity Centre. And this amendment is about one single lot, and the site is within General Residential Zone 2. The site is not located in Doncaster Hill Activity Centre. Department of Environment, Land, Water, and Planning website provides that, which I quote, planning scheme amendments usually affect one large area and require a range of strategic matters to be considered. This method isn't usually used to remove covenants on individual lots at the request of the owner, unless other changes to the planning scheme, such as a rezoning of land, are also proposed. This is on the website and open to the public to see. This proposed amendment only involves one lot of the size of 1,201 square meters. The amendments are not about multiple lots, and there are no other changes to the planning scheme proposed. Most importantly, and it goes to the heart of my objection, it should not be the role of council to enforce private agreements between residents or the private property rights of residents. It appears that such enforcement does not occur in any other area of law. There is other revenue which is more appropriate for the enforcement of private rights, such as Supreme Court proceeding. Therefore, the proposed amendment C114 should be objected, and I wish my fellow councillors would support my alternative motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zephyropoulos.
Councillors, I think Councillor Chen has covered the topic quite comprehensively. However, I'll add my bit. The Manningham Planning Scheme has served the purposes of controlling inevitable growth of our municipality to specified areas around activity centres. However, despite Council's efforts to manage this development, a number of undesirable consequences have resulted from this high-density growth, such as parking problems, congestion, and loss of amenity. The Glen Towers estate, even though it is within the General Residential Zone Schedule 2 and Design and Development Overlay Schedule 8, where increased housing densities are encouraged, has escaped the recent intensive development of the area with its undesirable consequences because of its restrictive covenants. The Glen Towers estate is a beautiful area of Manningham with single dwelling and open spaces which foster a pleasant neighbourhood character. The property owners of this area have been assured in the past that the covenants would protect them. There is only one landowner seeking this amendment, while the vast majority oppose it. As there are other avenues for a property owner to seek removal of this covenant, I support abandoning the amendment.
Thank you. Any speakers against?
Madam Mayor, can I move that we suspend standing orders, otherwise on this particular motion?
No problem. Councillor Goff, seconder. Councillor Conlon, those in favour to suspend? Carried.
Madam Mayor, if may I... Oh. May I speak?
Councillor Goff.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, look, I rise to actually support this particular motion. I just do want to actually clarify things and in my own words and the reasons why I support this particular motion. This particular area of land has been identified as Manningham as a high-density area of Manningham for more compact living. And it's in a DD08 area. I think, is it DD08 2?
Yes.
DD08 2. So it is in an area that we've identified for a sort of development that is wanting to be built here. Where that has been done at a strategic level. And when it was done at a strategic level, council did know that there were areas in there that had an agreement, a covenant on their title to say that it was one house only. This was very typical of what was going on in Manningham at the time. It was when Manningham was being developed. It was a thing to say that if you come and buy your block of land here, hopefully something's going to get built here in the next few years. You're not going to be all sitting out in a paddock by yourself. And B, the standard of house and the type of house and the type of thing can be foreseeable for you as a buyer of that block of land. And so covenants were entered into, and they do remain on titles. And yes, it is correct, the best way to go to get it off is the Supreme Court. And I actually agree with this, even though we've actually said, yes, we knew that, and owners can go to the Supreme Court, and I think that is where people should go to get it off. In the instant where one person comes to council and asks us to advertise a change on that area and to get it taken off that whole area, and for us to go through a process. So one person comes in, there are 100 people in the development, one person comes in, I want it changed, I want council to run a process. Oh yes, we'll run a process for you. Well, I don't know that that's right. But if there was a substantial number of people that had properties in that area that wanted that change, then perhaps council would look at it. So if we had, I don't know what the substantial number is, but if there was a substantial number of people that lived in that area that wanted that removed, then the process could quite honestly probably come to council for us to consider it. But for us to consider it because one person comes, I think is a little bit of a stretch for us to actually go through those processes to amend the planning scheme to have that taken off in that particular instance. So I actually agree with this particular motion.
Okay. Any other councillors? Councillor Haynes.
Oh, no.
Councillor Haynes.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with the councillors' amended, recommended motion, because when the DD08 and the Doncaster Hill strategy and the planning scheme was changed, when people with covenants were told they were protected from more development because of their covenants, this particular covenant removal is not supported by the other people in that area, and therefore I hope that the councillors vote to support Councillor Chen's motion and allow this to go through a different process. Owners in other avenues over the years, and many of the groups of covenant removals have occurred throughout Manningham, but that was strategic and it was done within groups, not just one person that wanted to change it, and everyone else around believes that their area is protected at this point from that DD08 and Doncaster Hill strategy. They didn't fight it because they were told they were protected, and I believe that the covenants are the title and the state issue, and council needs to not get involved in this one, in my view.
Thank you. Councillor Conlon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I support the motion, the alternative motion, but just in regard to Councillor Goff's comments regarding if there was a substantial number of applicants, I don't support that concept. Could I probably support Councillor Chen's original argument as reinforced by others that this is a matter between the beneficiaries and the applicant. So that's what I think we should be sending a message that off to the High Court or the Supreme Court if you want an amendment. Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Conlon. Anyone else?
I'll drink to that.
Okay, then I'll put it to a vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Can I please have a mover to resume standing orders? Councillor McLeish, seconder Councillor Zafiropoulos. Those in favour? Thank you. Carried. Item 10.3, Amendments C104 and Westfield Doncaster Draft Development Plan, consideration of modifications. A mover? Councillor Haynes.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Piccinini. Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I'm not going to foreshadow any amendments.
Thank you.
And I agree that this needs to go out to consultation. It is a substantial change from the prior application by Westfield. It's quite substantial, so I hope that the advertising and the consulting through the community is well advertised, and that the exhibition period, I hope, will be quite lengthy, that we do allow a fair space of time. And the only thing I am going to ask, not to go into the motion, but for council to consider, is that the Doncaster Hill water and the Yarra Valley water treatment plant, I hope that this can be included into the proposed plans, and that the Yarra Valley water sewage plant goes underground or in the basement, and it would also give environmentally friendly tick, and that the council and Westfield work together with Yarra Valley Water to achieve it and could put it within the condition of the permit. And I hope that we can consider that in the future.
Not quite sure. Okay. Councillor Piccinini.
I have nothing further to add, Madam Mayor.
Okay. So I'm going to put that to a vote. Any speakers against? Do I have a speakers against? So I'll put that now to a vote. Those in favour? Carried. (10.4) Heritage Restoration Fund 2017-2018 consider of applications. Do I have a mover? Councillor Piccinini.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Haynes. Councillor Piccinini.
Madam Mayor, the Heritage Committee met on the 23rd of August to consider 20 applications for funding from the Heritage Restoration funds. Part of the program is to restore building works, and part of it is to treat and cultivate trees and gardens. The total amount proposed to be allocated in this funding round is $35,000, and the proposed property, their works and the amounts are listed in attachment 2 of the report. The allocated funds are up to 50% of the proposed works. Madam Mayor, the committee went through a very thorough analysis of every application and according to a set criteria, and I seek that council vote in favour of this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Haynes.
Nothing further to add than I just support the work that they've done to put this together.
Thank you. Any speakers against? I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. 10.5 Domestic Animal Management Plan, consideration of submissions. Mover? Councillor Haynes.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
And seconder?
Second that.
Councillor Conlon. Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Domestic and Animal Management Plan had a number of considerations, and the submissions have been put within this plan. I specifically support the part of the plan in the agenda at page 355, which states, investigate the need for a second dog activity centre within Manningham. I hope that we're able to investigate what that is and bring it to council at the earliest convenience. I am concerned that there are computer-generated messages being sent out that say that former councillors that were part of, that were said to be part of putting together the first dog activity centre were not. That was put together before the previous council that was put together, and the main driver for that was Meg Downey, and so Councillor Meg Downey at the time. So I'm wanting to voice my opinion, my concerns that messages and information's getting out to the community that shouldn't. So I hope the council can continue to work on its policy for the domestic animals, and we can be thankful and grateful that we do have a dog activity centre and that Councillor Downey was one of the main drivers. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Conlon?
Nothing further.
Okay, any speakers against? Put that to a vote. Those in favour? Carried. Item 10.6, Open Space and Landscape Design Advisory Committee, consideration of nominations for community representatives. Mover, Councillor McLeish.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I move that the recommendation be adopted with the following community members appointed on the Open Space and Streetscape Advisory Committee for a 3-year term. Stephen Brennan, Bernice Charity, Carol Conway, Matt Maguire, Kieran Shind and Edwin Yap.
Thank you. Do I have a mover? That's a seconder, sorry. Councillor Conlon. Thank you. Councillor McLeish.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to rise to speak in favour of this particular motion. We have called for a new set of members for this particular committee. We have had 21 nominations. We've got a recommendation before us which is appropriate. It appoints community members who are a mixture of new members and existing members, a mixture of gender, of age, of experience and interest. And I believe this will be it will continue to be an excellent committee in providing sound advice and information to council in its deliberations, and I commend the recommendation to my fellow councillors.
Thank you. Councillor Conlon.
Nothing further.
Okay, any speakers against? Put that to a vote. Those in favour? Against? Carried. 10.7, Ruffy Creek Linear Park Management Plan, consideration of nominations for community representatives.
Madam Mayor and councillors, I wish to disclose that I have a conflict of interest in this item, being an indirect interest due to residential amenity, and I'll be leaving the meeting room for the duration and discussion of the matter.
Thank you. Councillor Piccinini is now leaving the chamber. Do I have a mover? Councillor Goff?
Yes, Madam Mayor, but I'm moving, Ruffy Lake Management Plan.
Correct.
Thank you very
That's
much.
what I think you want to move.
Linear Park.
That's
Yes,
what you're
management
now
plan.
standing up for.
Yes, so moved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. It's been a late night. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McLeish. So, Councillor Goff?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and this is probably a pretty exciting thing because Ruffy Creek Linear Park is probably one of the biggest missing links in our open space network. The linear park will actually go from the Yarra River and its main trails and things like that all the way through into Ruffy Lake Park. Well, it sort of does at the moment. It goes on a lot of roads at the moment inside, and we're trying to address that and getting land, and we've actually over the years, and it's taken a long time because the trial was around before I got onto council, and it was marked in there, but it's taken a long time. But basically, this is an important thing. It has been out to the community for consideration, and we have had a lot of feedback. Interestingly, one of the big issues is again dogs and whether they should or shouldn't be on lead or off lead on parks and things like that, on paths. But that was a number of the things that were there in it. The Parker and Foot Street, continuing and getting that connection together is very, very important. And indeed, there have been, after the consultation, a number of minor adjustments to the plan, and that's what we're really endorsing with this plan now to go into action for council. So, councillors, I hope you support this particular.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Councillor McLeish.
Nothing to add, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any speakers against? So let's put that to a vote. Those in favour? Carried. If I can please have Councillor Piccinini return to the chamber, and we'll just wait until she's seated. Councillor Piccinini has now been seated. 10.8, Tri-Solar Savers Special Charge Scheme. Wow, that's a mouthful. Do I have a mover?
I'll move that special.
Councillor Galbally.
I move that the Tri-Solar Savers Special Charge Scheme be adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Zefropoulos. Councillor
Yes,
Galbally.
Madam Mayor, look, the purpose of this special rates and charges scheme is unlike any other that we'll probably find at this council, in that all 9 recipients are actually voluntarily adopting this and asking for this scheme. What it is Manningham is part of a group of 21 other councils across Victoria that have, in collaboration with the Greenhouse Alliances, Municipal Association of Victoria, plus the Victorian Government, in a solar saving program for low-income earners. So what's happened is we approached our low-income earners that we've got on record, and we've got 9 residents that would like to take it up. The main benefit to them would be that they'd be able to get their solar installed instantly and reduce their cost of living pressures. So it will be a loan over 10 years, and it'll be adopted on their rates and charges levy. So to council, it means that we will be paying up front $30,615.60, and the scheme will commence in 2018. So these 9 low-income households will instantly be able to recoup some of the savings that they'd be receiving from the solar panels, and in effect be able to pay off the loan and at the same time. And it's a win for them. And I hope that it's going to be one of many that we see in Manningham. And I would like at this point to to thank our officer Vivian Williamson, who's put a lot of work and effort in it. And thank you very much. And to your staff, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zefropoulos.
Just further on what Councillor Galbally has commented in relation to this, there are 2 reasons why I support this motion. One has to do with the fact that collaboration can only be a good thing for councils. It avoids duplication, it creates opportunities of learning from other councils, it saves money, and it embraces ideas that otherwise would not have been taken up. So collaboration with 21 councils is a good thing for me. The other good thing about this proposal is that it's not very expensive, $30,000, which will be recovered over a long period. Nevertheless, it will be recovered. And it also helps low-income households to overcome the financial burdens of installing a solar system. And this is good. It shows that this council has got a heart, that it thinks about the underprivileged. Darabin City Council has shown the way because they've been running this program for the last 3 years. And my understanding, by talking to people there, they're very satisfied with the system. And I know that sometimes special charge schemes can be problematic. However, I think this project is so worthwhile that I'm willing to make an exception. So I support the motion.
Thank you. Any speakers against? Put that to a vote. Those in favour? That's carried. I'd like to remind people in the gallery that we will be clearing the question box shortly. Please submit any questions you may have in the next few minutes. I would also stress that I will deal with a maximum of 2 questions per person. If you have more than 2 questions, please submit these additional questions in writing to the Council through the normal channels. Item 11, Assets and Engineering. 11.1, Park and Reserves Benchmarking Survey, April 2017. Mover, Councillor Chen.
Madam Mayor, I move that a recommendation be adopted.
And a seconder, Councillor Conlon. Councillor Chen.
Yes, Madam Mayor, the Parks and Reserves Infrastructure Benchmarking Survey has been conducted annually since the year 2000. The results shows that Manningham is generally performing well against other councils. There are also improvement opportunities identified, such as the inconsistencies in litter management and garden bed on sporting reserves. I wish to congratulate our staff for the standard of their works and appreciate the improvement opportunities identified to raise the level of performance.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Councillor Conlon.
Nothing further to add.
Any speakers against? Put that to a vote. Those in favour? Carried. Item 12, Community Programs. There are none. Item 13, Shared Services. There are none. So, item 14, Chief Executive Officer, 14.1, Annual Reports 2016-17, in principle approval. Do I have a mover? Councillor Goff. Councillor Goff?
Should we have a second?
No, I'm asking, are you moving it?
Yes, I will move it, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much. I move. Oh, you want me to read that?
Yes, I do, Councillor.
I move that the annual report 2016-17
No, just
17 in principle approval, and that recommendation be adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. It's been a very long day for many of us. A seconder, Councillor Zephyropoulos. Councillor Goff, anything to add?
No, there's really nothing further to add, but we do support the, I suppose, the annual report to go off to the Minister, which he needs to receive very, very soon, I should imagine, to be signed off. So, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Councillor Zephyropoulos?
Well, I've got nothing to add, but given that Jeff interpreted this as having to say a little bit, let me just say that I am very pleased that in checking our performance in relation to previous reports, we got some recognition by, I'm not sure what authority, local government, that our that this report will fair and equal recognition.
Thank you, Councillor Zephyropoulos. Any speakers against? Put that to a vote. All those in favour? That is carried. Item 14.2, MAV Advocacy Motions, October State Council Meeting 2017. A mover, Councillor McLeish.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Piccinini. Councillor McLeish.
Nothing to add, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Piccinini.
Nothing to add, Madam Mayor.
Any speakers against? Put that to a motion. Vote. Those in favour? Carried. It's been a very long day. Very long. Item 14.3. Record of Assembly of Councillors, September 2017. Do I have a mover? Councillor Chen.
Madam Mayor, I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Conlon. Councillor Chen.
Nothing to add?
Thank you. Councillor Conlon.
Nothing to add.
Thank you. Any speakers against? Put that to a vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Item 14.4, documents for sealing. Do I have documents for sealing September 26, 2017. Do I have a mover?
That'll be me. Thank you, Madam
Councillor
Mayor.
Galbally.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
A seconder? Councillor Conlon. Councillor Galbally.
No, it is 26th of September, so nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Conlon. Any speakers against? Put that to a vote. Those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Notices of motion 15.1, notice of motion by Councillor Haynes, MON, not NOM 3/17. Do I have a mover?
Madam Mayor, I move to defer this motion for 3 months to have further consultation.
Seconder?
I'll second that. Sorry.
Councillor Goff?
No,
Oh, sorry, Councillor McLeish?
That's fine.
Councillor Goff, second.
No, that's all right.
According to our process, he seconded it.
Sorry.
Councillor Goff? You threw me because you stood up so fast. You were all wanting to... Okay.
I didn't write anything down from before, so I didn't write anything down, so I couldn't.
So, yes. So you don't speak to that, do you?
No, there's nothing to
No,
speak of.
there's nothing to speak of. So, Councillor Goff, anything to add? No?
There's nothing to speak
There's
of.
nothing there,
Procedural.
so we'll put it to a vote. Put it to a vote. Carried. Okay. Item 16, urgent business. Is there any urgent business? There is not. Okay. Item 17, questions, written questions from the public.
Yes, councillors, there are 3 questions. Question 1 from Justin Spencer. And I'll read the question in full. Doncaster Hill Recycled Water Project. What is the council's opinion of the proposed recycled water project? Will the council support one of the proposed sites that Yarra Valley Water is proposing? I'd suggest that question needs to be taken on notice, councillors. The second question from Ms Susan Berry. Question 1 is, will Manningham look carefully and consider amending iconography, signs and brochures, websites which visually communicate messages about off-lead dog facilities to make the message clear and instructive? At present, community members can be entrapped because the visual imagery tends to show happy dogs bounding and roaming and swimming in rivers with no owners shown. Certainly that can be taken on board. Thank you for that. And question 2, because it relates to a legal matter, will be dealt with in writing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item 18, councillors' question time. Councillor Goff.
Yes, Madam Mayor, and I'm wondering if I can ask for a report to come back to council, and then to actually SBS, and then if council come back to council if we can get a report to Vic Roads with regard to the state of some state government roads in Manningham. In particular, Thompson's Road between Manningham Road and the freeway. There's quite a number of areas where the surfaces are coming off and there are potholes in that particular area, and also Manningham Road in particular from Thompson's Road up to Williamson's Road. There are some areas, but I'm sure that there are other areas because as I'm going around the municipality, I'm noticing more and more that a number of those major roads are starting to deteriorate greatly. So I'm wondering if we could bring it up as a topic of discussion and refer it to the Office for investigation.
So, Councillor, you after a report or a briefing?
Just a video briefing.
Briefing?
I think I've said
Yep.
enough. I've
Okay,
highlighted
yep.
the fact that Vic Roads aren't looking
Very
after their
clear.
roads.
Yes, yeah.
So,
No, thank you.
yeah.
Taken. Councillor Conlon.
I'd like to add to Councillor Goff's suggestion there, especially in regard to the freeway. I know it's maybe not on our land, but as you're coming between Springvale Road and Blackburn Road, heading towards Ringwood, that left-hand lane stops, and there's an emergency lane which is now a part-time usable lane, and I'd like Vic Roads to consider making that a full-time lane, that far left lane. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Conlon. Anybody else? No, okay. Well, then I'll take it that the meeting is now closed. Thank you, councillors. Thank you to the members of the public.